this is probably going to be a mistake. I am most likely going to regret this, but I'm gonna do it anyway. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Ashley and I like to talk about books, and in this reading vlog, I am going to allow myself to be easily influenced by TikTok. Let me give you a little history of my relationship with TikTok. So I was definitely one of those people who at the start of quarantine thought I was way too good for TikTok. I thought I was way too old for TikTok. I thought it was something that like the teens were doing, people still in college and high school. I was just like, that's not my vibe. It's not a place for me. I'm not gonna like it. It's lame, it's dumb. And now I spend hours on TikTok each week. I really thought that TikTok was just like a dancing app. Like I thought it was the next Musical.ly, if you are old enough to remember Musical.ly. But there is so much on TikTok. It is incredible. It is truly like the most interesting social media platform I think we've seen in a while. The algorithm is outstandingly accurate at figuring out who you are and what types of content you want to see. I mean, I get TikToks on like Excel formulas that help me in my work, to nostalgia from the 90s and life hacks and Taylor Swift conspiracy theories about when she's releasing the next album. And of course, there is booktok. And I think booktok gets a very bad rap. And I do know why, actually. I do know why. Anytime there's like a new social media platform or a new place where book influencers are finding a new place to be influential about books, whatever came before, those people tend to get really salty about the new people because the attention's on them. There's like articles coming out about how booktokers are influencing New York Times bestsellers lists, with old books like Song of Achilles coming back to the top of the charts and We Were Liars by E. Lockhart, even though those are really old books. And like, I get it. I understand where all the harsh feelings are coming from because booktubers have been talking about those books for years and no one's giving them the credit, but then all of a sudden booktok's getting a lot of attention and publishers are investing in booktokers for marketing. I understand how that feels strange or hard, but like also before booktube there was the book bloggers, and book bloggers get slept on real hard. So I don't think there's a lot of room to complain or compete. I am just glad that there are more places where people are finding out about books. There are more avenues that are getting more people to read and to pick up even older books. I think all of that is great. So personally, I think booktok is just another great place for people to access and find out about new books. New as in new books or new to them books, because also like old books are really being promoted a lot on booktok. But anyway, all that being said, people are talking mad trash about booktok, and so I just didn't like look for it at first. It just wasn't coming up in my FYP on TikTok, and so I just wasn't getting that kind of content. But I saw people complaining that all they talk about is like ACOTAR and Cassandra Clare and the same like 5 old books from a long time ago. So I had to like work to find booktok. I had to search on the hashtags and start watching those videos before they would start coming up on my FYP. And at first, I kind of felt where people were coming from. I was seeing books being recommended that I read when I was like in middle school, and I wasn't sure why they were getting so much hype and praise now when there are so many awesome new books that are out. Like they were just talking about The Hunger Games and Divergent and, you know, stuff I read a very long time ago. So I was like, maybe this isn't going to be like a good place for me to find new books. Maybe I'm not interested in booktok. But then my FYP did its work. That algorithm did its work, and my FYP of book content has gotten so much better and targeted to me on TikTok now. So I really enjoy the booktok side of things. So you may be wondering, where is this going? Why is she giving us this whole spiel? Because I am now wanting to read all of these books because of TikTok. There are so many books that I see talked about on TikTok, and I'm like, I want to pick that up right now, but I have like a million other books to read. But then there are recommendations like this one, and I'm just curious what's going on. My TikTok FYP sometimes knows me better than myself, and they are recommending me a lot of smutty romance books, and I do not really read smutty romance books at this stage in my life. I had a period where I was reading a lot more romance, and that in the smutty category as well, but like I've never been like a full smutty romance reader. But for some reason, TikTok now thinks I should be. There are a couple of books I see recommended a lot in this category, like the ACOTAR series, which I'm already reading, which I don't really know if I would very much call that smutty, at least what I'm up to in the third book. And then I see From Blood and Ash recommended a lot, and that's definitely on my radar. I do want to read that soon. The Shadows Between Us, lots of those like fantasy romance. But I saw this one book recommended to me one time, and the way the TikToker hyped it up, and then the way I keep seeing this book come up, I have to know what's going on. I have to know, is this going to be groundbreaking? Is this going to be one of my favorite books? Why is TikTok pushing this book to me so hard? I need to know. And that book is Flock. This is part of the Ravenhood trilogy by Kate Stewart. I've never seen this anywhere. I've never seen anyone read this book. I only see this on my TikTok FYP, and I can't take it any longer. I need to know if this is actually going to destroy me like the TikTokers say it will.
Wow, 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 wow. This is so different from my usual rec. This is my most 18+ rec I have ever given. This is Flock, the Ravenhood series by Kate Stewart. I can't think, I can't work, I can't do anything but think about this series. It's a thriller. You don't even know what's happening, and you won't until like the end of the first book, and you still won't really know.
These men are hot. It's a spicy, angsty book. That's all you need to know. I am so obsessed. I love this series so much. Oh my god, you guys have to read the series. Listen, I won't lie to you. The synopsis on the back of each of this is so vague. Like, you don't even have any clue what's going to happen. So that's fine. Don't waste your time on it. Just start the book and trust me, you're gonna love it. Look at my tabs. Look at my tabs. Spice-wise, for all three of them, I would probably say at about like 2.5 to 3. And let me just tell you, when you meet the Frenchman, you're gonna fall in love.
Now, when I read the synopsis of this book, I chuckled to myself. I don't think I'm gonna like this book. I don't think there's a chance that I'm gonna like this book. But TikTok thinks so, so I'm gonna give it a try because I'm all about experiments. So let me just do you the pleasure of reading the synopsis to you. Can you keep a secret? I grew up sick. Let me clarify. I grew up believing that real love stories include a martyr or demand great sacrifice to be worthy. Because of that, I believed it because I made myself believe it. And I bred the most masochistic of romantic hearts, which resulted in my illness. When I lived this story, my own twisted fairy tale, it was unbeknownst to me at the time because I was young and naive. I gave into temptation and fed the beating beast, which grew thirstier with every slash, every strike, every blow. Triple Falls wasn't at all what it seemed, nor were the men that swept me under their wing. But in order to keep them, I had to be in on their secrets. Secrets that cost us everything to keep. That's the novelty of fiction versus reality. You can't relive your own love story because by the time you've realized you're living it, it's over. At least that was the case for me and the men I trusted my foolish heart to. Looking back, I'm convinced I willed my story into existence due to my illness, and all were punished. So yeah, I don't think this book stands a chance of being one of my favorite books, but TikTok thinks so, so I'm gonna give it a try. I don't even know what this book is about. It says wing. Does that mean there's fairies? I would enjoy that. I like fairies, but is that what it is? It says Ravenhood. Like, are they birds? I don't know. It sounds very dark. This whole like tone and style and like, who is this coming from? Is this a woman that is narrating this? What happened to her? It sounds like a lot of trauma. I don't understand. The synopsis does nothing for telling me like what the story is actually gonna give me. So I'm just gonna let this be a journey. We're gonna go on this journey together. We're gonna try this book out. We're gonna see what happens. Maybe it'll be a new favorite, or maybe it'll just be a fun experiment and a fun time. So let's do this thing. This is so painful to read. I'm in physical pain. Okay, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but this is not good so far. I have only read the first chapter. I started it last night and I really wanted to read more before I went to bed, but I read the first chapter and I was like, I can't. I'm too tired. I need to go to sleep. And also this book is not good. I do not like reading books written in the first person anymore. I just don't. I like third person. That's my thing. That's what I like. First person reads like a diary. It's whiny. I'm like, who are you talking to? I don't know. It's just not my vibe, so I don't like that. that. But also everything about this book is just so cringy that I just don't know if I'm gonna be able to get through it. It's so bad. I didn't think it was gonna be as bad. It's very bad. Let me just explain. So the book begins the exact same way that the synopsis is written, with a prologue, with the whole I grew up sick, blah, 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 the beating beast, all of that I painfully made you go through as well. A little bit longer. I don't know what's happening. It's like this girl talking about how something happened to her when she was like 17 or something. She's now 26. She's still living in this town, Triple Falls. She's talking very vaguely about bad things that happened in her youth with these boys. Disobeying my heart, my master and monster had cost me Colin. I don't know what that means. She had a fiance, but now they broke it off. I'm having to look at this because I literally can't even remember because it was just so not good. And so now she's stuck in Triple Falls again after breaking it off with this fiance. She's got unfinished business. I don't know. So then part 1 begins. In part 1, it says then. So like, I guess you're going back in time to learn what happened to her. Also, the birds. There's so many of these birds, like, they are everywhere. So then you start learning about what happened back then when she was younger, a teenager. She was going to live with her dad, I think. Yeah, her dad's a conservative with a critical tongue and militant self-discipline. He owns a Fortune 500 company that used to deal in chemicals, but now manufactures electronics. Also, something interesting, I had no idea this book was based in North Carolina. Hello, I'm in North Carolina. So that is very weird to hear them just talking about Charlotte and the Blue Ridge Mountain area. I had no idea this was gonna be based in North Carolina. Yeah, I don't know. You're still just learning things. Like the whole first chapter, she's on the phone with a friend talking about how she first got to her dad's place, and it's just so much dialogue talking about her dad. And she calls him Roman on the phone, which is his first name, and she's talking to her friend. She's like, Roman fears more than being a real parent, blah, blah, blah. And the friend is like, it's weird that you call your dad by his first name. And she says, not to his face. When I'm here, it's sir. That's weird.
That's weird.
Just talking about how strict he is, blah, blah, blah. And then the first chapter ends on the phone call where the friend says, call me after orientation tomorrow. She responds, K, and the person responds, love you. No dialogue tags. It's just like dialogue, dialogue, dialogue. Call me after orientation tomorrow, K, love you. And that's the end of chapter 1. So I have no idea what's going on so far. I don't know what the story is going to follow. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get through it. I don't know if I'm gonna care about any of these characters. Maybe something will surprise me. It wouldn't be the first time that I've started a book and been like, what am I reading? And then it surprised me and I actually ended up really enjoying it. But I would say from what I know now, the odds are pretty low. But yeah, I kind of want to figure out what this book is about. I kind of want to look up videos and hear people talk about it because the synopsis doesn't tell you what it's about. Like, I kind of want to hear someone say, it's about this girl who goes through this and blah, 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 but is like the mystery supposed to be part of it? I don't know. So I'm just going to avoid it. I'm just going to go into it not knowing anything. We'll see how that goes. And it's a book that I should be able to read pretty quick because it is so much dialogue. It's like pretty big font on the pages. It's not that long, only a little over 300 pages. So I'm gonna try to power through and get to like the halfway point maybe before I update you next. And I should be able to accomplish that all tonight, unless it's terrible, in which case we'll see. So I did it. I got halfway through this book. I did not enjoy it. There's just no way I can make this video without going into full-on spoiler mode. So if you don't want to know anything about this book, step off this video. Thanks for tuning in so far. I don't think it's gonna go uphill from here if you were wondering, but I'm gonna dive right into spoilers and we're just gonna talk about what happens in this book. We're just gonna walk through scene by scene and just talk about what is going on in this. So I've been taking notes on my phone because it's been a mess and I need to be able to remember all this. Let me just start with telling you what I found that this book is about. We follow this girl Celia who is 18, she is soon to be 19, and she was going to live with her father for a year to work at the plant that he owns so that she'll be able to inherit the plant once he retires, I guess. Also, her mom just had like a mental breakdown and like quit her job, so she just can't really be with her mom anymore, so she is moving to be with her dad. Moves to this middle of nowhere town in North Carolina to work at this factory, and on her first day she is there for orientation and she introduces herself by saying she is the daughter of the guy who owns the plant, and don't worry, I'm not gonna narc on you. If you wanna have afternoon delight in the bathroom, no problemo. Why would you say that on your first day of work? I don't know. Then another guy introduces himself, plays off of the afternoon delight joke. His name is Sean, and he becomes our love interest, at least so far in this book. I suspect he will not long be the love interest because things have gone a rocky way, and I feel like we are building up for her to learn some things about how toxic this relationship is, because it is so bad. It is so bad. So her and Sean strike up a very quick romantic relationship. Immediately after the first day of work, he invites her back to a party. He's like 25 years old. All of his friends are like mid-20s, which doesn't seem a lot older than 18, but it is a lot older than 18. All of them are drinking and smoking weed, and she just has never really been the partier type, and she gets drunk off of 1.5 ciders and so high that she sees the stars off of 2 puffs. So yeah, she is new to the scene. She's very young. Very bad environment. All these guys have like this raven, which, oh my gosh, if we haven't seen it a million times yet, this is what it looks like. But all these guys have like a raven tattooed on their arm. They seem to have some sort of brotherhood. They give me werewolf vibes. I don't think they're werewolves, but they give me werewolf pack brother vibes. Really quickly, she starts falling in with Sean, but there's also this guy, Dominic, who's part of the group, and he's what they call like the wolf. And you know how you can say someone's like all bark and no bite? He is like all bite with no warning bark. He's just like an asshole. He is very controlling and very rude to her like all the time, never wants her to be involved anywhere. It seems a bit like a protective thing, like he's like, oh, she's too naive to be here, but so far as it presents just to her without any interpretation from the reader's point of view, he's just a jerk. Before we get into all that, I just need to describe Sean as a love interest. He has a lip piercing, frosted tips, smokes cigarettes, and wears shorts with boots. Am I supposed to be attracted to that? Am I supposed to be swooning? I have to imagine this is not the final love interest. I could not imagine having to find this character attractive because I hate everything about him. The way he acts, the way he treats her, it's all terrible, but like frosted tips, come on. Honestly, no one really seems attractive in this book. Dominic has a better chance. I think he's described as having like onyx hair, like longer, dark hair. But I don't know. It's just like every time a character is described in this book, you learn what their hair, eyes, and mouth and nose look like for some reason. I get the description for everyone's body parts in that list, and it is just not the best writing, but we are trying to look past that. So let's start talking a little bit about Sean and all of his problematic behavior. So one day he just shows up to take Cecilia hiking. Seems like a normal enough thing, spontaneous date, whatever. But once he is walking around, he starts like philosophizing with her and just going on and on about his concept of time and how you have to live in the now and you can't let the past or the future control you, which like, yeah, in theory, sure, fine theories to have, fine ideologies, I get it, but like the way he goes on and on about it goes too far. So far to the point that he rips her Apple Watch that her dad gifted her off her wrist and stomps on it on the ground to prove to her that she will be happier if she does not live under the concept of time. He also talks about not worrying about the consequences of his actions. Later in the book, he ends up telling her he does not want her to be on her phone around him and makes it a rule that she can't be on her phone around him. Ultra controlling, not good at all. The hiking scene is also where we get the first sex scene, and it was smutty and painful to read. Honestly, I'm not enjoying any part of this book yet. I don't know why this is so loved on TikTok. I don't get it. Maybe things will really take a turn. But anyways, let's talk about the big conflict that comes into play. So Sean gets ultra controlling. He is terrible to her. And then it eventually escalates to one day where they're all in the house together. She's at his place. He lives with these other dudes, Dominic and Tyler, and they sleep together that night. When she wakes up, she's walking around and she sees Dominic with his door open, completely naked, with his package right there out in the open. They make eye contact. It's a weird moment. She decides she doesn't want to tell Sean about it. She just kind of goes back, gives him a guilty a favor, I'll say, and moves on. Later she decides she should make him a cake to make up for that. So she makes him a cake. Dominic makes fun of her for playing house, and they get into a little bit of a tiff. She goes to slap him in the face, grabs her hand, and puts it on his hard package and says violence turns him on. So this is not a great group of guys to be around. It's all awful. That scene escalates even further when Sean does not really defend Cecilia and does not get Dominic to stop messing with her. Tyler's car is blocking her in. She asks him to move his car. He's playing video games. She gets frustrated and she slams the cake on Dominic's head. Then she grabs the car keys to move Tyler's car, and before she can get into her car, Sean thinks that was so cute and he throws her over his shoulder, takes her upstairs, and has his way with her. So this is like the first kind of forced sexual encounter, and there's more to come. So after all of this goes down, she starts realizing, you know, maybe these aren't the best group of guys. She's getting warnings from people that she works with in the factory that they're not the best group of guys, that they share their women, that they kind of leave them broken and you never hear from them again, and she should stay away from them. But she doesn't listen to that. She continues to stay with them until this point where everything kind of escalates with the cake incident. And then she decides, okay, maybe I should take some time away from him. She stops texting him. He doesn't really text her. And then one day she's just chilling in her pool and the three guys show up at her pool and Sean basically forces her to forgive him. It is a very weird scene. It was a very uncomfortable scene. They're all just coming in happy-go-lucky, like nothing's wrong. And she's like, I don't want to associate with any of you. Like, I don't think this is going to work out for us. Also, I don't know how I forgot this, but he calls her Pup, like the nickname he uses for his pup. It came out of nowhere. He just stuck with it. She ran with it. I do not like that either. But he comes all up in there like, hey pup, what's up? You're not gonna give up on me that easily, are you? Blah, blah, blah. She kind of falls for it. One thing leads to another, and then he ends up forcing himself on her in the pool, and it's described with pretty violent language. She describes and trigger warnings for sexual assault, because this is not like being described as sexual assault in the book right now, but like the way I am reading it and interpreting it, it is to me. But it's described with pretty violent language, like he's shoving her back up against the pool. He really comes on to her without her consent. Even before this scene, there's a lot of language about him claiming her used, and I just don't like it. It makes me feel icky. For this to be a romance, there's just so far nothing to swoon over. It's just all very toxic so far. So far that's about where I'm at halfway through the book. That's about all that's happened. The last thing that happened is she's going back to work and one of the employees starts to yell at her because she's the boss's daughter, and apparently he has been like stiffing them on their paychecks, paying them for fewer hours than they actually work. Apparently that's an issue that's going on with a lot of people in the company, and this lady has an outrage about it, screams at Cecilia about it. Sean is her supervisor. He interferes. He ends up firing that lady. So we've just gotten that kind of aspect into the story. The one other thing I forgot about until right now is this one other very weird moment that happens where she and Sean go to the laundromat and they're doing all the guys' clothes, and she's sitting in the car waiting, and there's like a Mexican restaurant beside the laundromat, and she is looking in the restaurant and sees this woman who is like rolling tortillas, just smiling, happy-go-lucky. She has this whole inner monologue with herself where she's just like begrudging herself for not being able to have that kind of peace about the boring work she does at the factory, at the plant that she works at. So it starts as that kind of moment. Then she watches the lady steal money from the cash register and bring it out to a van in which there's a boy in a wheelchair who is also blind that she is giving the money to. Then Sean comes out to the car and gives her the whole story, filling her in. That's like her grandson and her son-in-law and her daughter ended up leaving them, so she takes care of them by doing that. But it's like, what was the significance of that scene? Are we seeing how he's tied in with the community? Is there something sketch going on? I don't really know. There's also been several moments where it is quite evident that these boys can read her mind. They're just like subtly hinting that, but I mean, it's like, it's not that subtle. It's pretty clear that's happening. So like I said, I'm getting like werewolf pack vibes, but because of how much they're associated with the birds and the ravens, I'm assuming it's gonna have to do something with that, but there's definitely something supernatural going on, and I hope to God she realizes how toxic this relationship is and gets the heck out of it. This was a very bad book. I finished, it was bad from beginning to middle to end. It was bad. I just am mostly confused about the TikTokers who won't stop talking about this book and who say it is so good, so amazing, so wonderful, one of the best things I've ever read, so addictive. No. no, it's not. It's not good. It's not good. I guess first let me fill you in on the spoilery elements of what happens throughout the rest of the book. I think the last time I was talking to you, oh my God, so much has happened. So I was around the middle of the book the last time I was updating you on what was going on, and I think one of the final things I was telling you about was how it had just come out that her dad was like stealing money in the paychecks, like not paying people enough, and she had just had this big blow up sort of thing with Sean for a bit, but then he ended up coming back to her place with Dominic and Tyler and just kind of made her forgive him, and then things were like picking back up for them. I'm just gonna hit the highlights of what happens from there because it is a whirlwind. Very quickly after that point, Cecilia ends up in a polyamorous relationship with Dominic and Sean, and there is a threesome scene. The men are not intimate with one another, but they are both intimate with her at the same time on a float. It came out of nowhere. It shocked me, rocked me to my core. Not in a good way. It was terrible to read. I did not like it. Listen, I'm here for spice. This was smut, and I could be here for smut too, but I just am not attracted to these characters. I'm not interested in these relationships. They're not good relationships with either of these people, so I did not want to invest in any sort of relationship for them. Didn't want to see them be intimate. I did not care about them. They're not good for Cecilia. I just wanted her to move on from these men the entire book. There's a couple more blow-ups in the relationship that happen in the back half. You also start to learn more about Dominic as a character as him and Cecilia start to build up their own sort of relationship, and you see more about his past. His parents are both dead, you know, and he has this woman who kind of took care of him, and she is currently going through cancer treatment of some sort, and so he takes Cecilia with him to go take care of her at one point, and so you get a little bit of his insight there. Then you get a whole day with him on a rainy day where Sean's away. He's going on a hiking, he's got things to do, and so she spends the whole day with Dom in bed, and they read books together, and then they pretty much just like bang all day long, and it's exhausting. And this whole time Cecilia is still not knowing what they're doing, doesn't know what they're involved in, what the big secret is, what they're not telling her, and it all comes to a head when they take her to this like party gathering thing. And she kind of just starts to piece it together in her mind, and then she just comes to a realization in the next chapter that she just knows what they're doing, and they never like address it fully. She just is like, yeah, I know. And then all of a sudden she just knows what they're doing. And that is that they are basically like a group of Robin Hoods. They steal from bad people to give back to good people. So that explains that whole scene we got with that woman who was working at the Mexican restaurant, and we saw her stealing and giving to her grandson. And that was really weird and out of place. That is what they do. That is what their group does. And a lot of people are in on it, and it's very secretive. And ultimately the big thing that you figure out at the end of this book, in the very last like 5% of the book, is what they're ultimately trying to do is to punish Cecilia's father, because he has, as we know, been stiffing people's checks, but it's more than that. He like runs the whole town, and he's got a lot of corrupt things going on, and so they're trying to like ultimately steal from him and make him suffer for all the bad things he has done. So that's what happens in the very end of the book, but let me back up a little bit and tell you a little bit more of what happened. So the last big blow up that happens in this book is very confusing to me. I was very lost in the scene that I was reading. I didn't understand how we got there or what was happening, but basically Cecilia one day goes to hang out with them at the garage or a party or something, and they say, oh my gosh, it's so not safe for you right now, we've got to get you out of here. So Dominic and Sean don't want her to be there, they want her to go home. So she goes home, and then they ghost her for like weeks after that. They do not talk to her or text her, reach out, like at all. They just completely ghost her. And so then she decides that the relationship is over and that they have been playing with her this whole time, that it hasn't been real, they've never had any feelings for her, which like, that's the thing you're gonna be mad about? That doesn't make any sense. You weren't mad about any of the toxic behavior that they've been exhibiting in your relationship, but you're all of a sudden upset that they're ghosting you, and you have confused yourself into thinking that they never even liked you in the first place because of that. You don't think maybe they're trying to protect you from something with the obvious way that this is being written, but okay. So she gets really mad. She goes off to her mom and her best friend, and then she decides like, that's it, I'm done with these men, no more for me. And she stays like firm on that. She really doesn't want to be with them anymore. Then she ends up running into Dominic, and then she runs into Sean, and that's when they all put all the pieces together of what they're trying to do, how they're trying to punish her dad. And then it basically ends with them being like very assertive with her that she belongs to them now, and she's going to just have to be with them, and that's how it is. Also, her life's going to be in danger because there are these opposing forces at play who now know about her. Basically, the whole thing all comes down to the fact that this is a group of like Robin Hoods, and when Sean first met Cecilia, he was using her, pulling her in so that they could control the daughter of the guy that they're trying to go get revenge for. They'd have an in to her house to get into his house and stuff. But then they ended up catching feelings for her, and then it all turned negative, and then these opposing forces, what we don't even know about, then knew that they had her, and they knew that they caught feelings, so then they had to act like they didn't like her so that it didn't seem as bad. But then it got worse because now they know about her and they want her. It doesn't make a ton of sense. I don't know, but the book ends with her trying to like lure them back to her because now she's like got this revenge plan. I don't know, she's literally laying out naked by the pool, blasting loud music, thinking that's going to attract them, and then someone comes over her and she opens her eyes and it's this mysterious looking dude, and she's like, oh, that's the wolf they were talking about. This is the actual Frenchman. And that's where the book ends. So you thought Dominic was the Frenchman. He's not. It's this random dude. I don't know. I will not be continuing in this series. This was not good. I did not enjoy it. I did not like the men. They were not good love interests. I don't know if they were supposed to be or if the point is that they're not supposed to be, but it's not enjoyable to read for an entire book. These two love interests that both suck and treat her terribly and are possessive and jealous and controlling and terrible and awful and not attractive and bad. So yeah, that's a wrap on that. I am so upset that I wasted my time on this book. I really thought it might pick up with so many people talking about it. I thought for sure there's got to be some kind of redeeming quality. Maybe it's going to be like a guilty pleasure read. I'm certainly going to like something about it, but I liked absolutely nothing about it. This is actually the second worst book I've ever read in my life, with the first worst book ever being Supermarket by Bobby Hall, aka Logic. This is now the second worst book that I have read in my life. So yeah, that is what happened in this video. There's so much more I could say about this book. There's so much more I could talk about in terms of how confusing the writing was and how at times you didn't understand characters' motives or decisions at all, and there were weird transitions and weird time jumps, and all of a sudden characters were at these realizations, but you didn't really get to see them come to that realization even though you've been leading up to it the whole time, and it's like, why would you skip that moment? It just seemed a little jumpy. Like, there's so much I could talk about, but I cannot waste any more time or breath or energy on this book. I am very upset. I do think I will waste a little bit more time in watching some spoiler reviews of the rest of the trilogy for the second and the third book, just to know like where this goes, to be able to sleep at night, like to have that peace of knowing who is the Frenchman, how does that come in, and does she get a better love interest? But I will not be reading those books. There's nothing you could do to make me read those books. I cannot do it anymore. I am so interested to know if you are one of those people out there like me who has been influenced by TikTok and has read this book, or if you just knew about it, if you just read it on your own, if you know Kate Stewart. Apparently she's a little bit of a well-known author. I also saw in the back, once I got to the end, that she is from North Carolina as well. So fellow North Carolinian, hello. But yeah, if you liked this book, if you liked this trilogy, why? What did you like about it? What was good to you? Why are people giving this 5 stars like it's nothing? I'm looking through Goodreads reviews and people are loving this book. Genuinely, why? Why is this so good to you? I don't understand. I cannot find a redeeming quality. I usually can like pinpoint some sort of audience or type of reader that a book would be good for, even if I didn't like it, but I can't with this one. I genuinely can't. So I'm very curious. If you like this book, let me know why. But that is it for me. I will be putting a wrap on this video. It pretty much went as I expected it to go. I really was expecting to probably not like this book. I thought I might be surprised. It happens occasionally, but ultimately, I did not like this book. It was not for me, and I will not be continuing on in the rest of this series, but I will be going to dig to get those spoilers to know what happens, because I'm a curious girl. But that is it for me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!